Have you ever wondered what people are capable of when they think they're protecting their own image? Have you ever looked across a dinner table at the two people who were supposed to love you most in this world and realized, in one cold, breathless moment, that they were the ones who had quietly destroyed your life? That's exactly what happened in this true story. My name is Sarah Bennett. I'm 29 years old. And 14 days before my wedding, my own father looked my fiancé dead in the eyes and said, "She's a liar. Always has been. She had a bastard child at 18 and tried to trap a man with it." My mother leaned in beside him, her voice thick with venom, and hissed, "Don't let this trap you too. She abandoned her own daughter like trash. She is rotten to the core." I sat at that dining table, silent, while the two people who were supposed to love me tore my soul into ribbons in front of the man I loved. I didn't defend myself. I didn't cry. I didn't run. Because what my parents didn't know, what they could not have possibly imagined, was that my fiancé had already found her. He had spent the last 6 months quietly reversing every cruelty they had committed. And in 14 days, the daughter they forced me to give away was going to walk into our rehearsal dinner. Everything they tried to bury was about to claw its way back into the light. And every careful piece of the world they thought they controlled was about to shatter on a hardwood floor in front of 40 witnesses. Before I go any further, if this story is already pressing into your chest, please take 1 second to like and subscribe, and drop your location and your local time in the comments below. I genuinely love knowing where in the world you are listening from right now. I'm Sarah. This is the story of how my own parents tried to destroy my life, and how the daughter they forced me to give away came back to save it. Now let me take you back 3 years, to a hospital corridor, where I saw him again for the first time in 8 years. December 20th, 2024. Mark proposed on the rooftop of his Cambridge apartment. It was freezing, the kind of cold that makes your bones feel hollow. The Charles River looked like glass under the city lights. He'd set up candles in mason jars all the way around the rooftop, because he knew I'd think it was cheesy and love it anyway. When he got down on one knee, he didn't recite a speech. He just looked at me and said, "I lost 8 years with you. I don't want to lose 8 more days." I said yes before he finished the sentence. The ring was a vintage sapphire, his grandmother's. She had died when he was 12. He had told me once, years ago, that she was the only person in his family who had ever truly understood him. "A family heirloom," he said softly that night, sliding it onto my finger, "for the family we're building." I should have known my parents would find a way to poison even that. We set the wedding for March 29th, 2026. Old South Church for the ceremony, the Fairmont Copley Plaza for the reception, a classic Boston-bred wedding. I sent out 128 invitations. My mother called the morning after I mailed them. "White roses are so common, Sarah. What will the church ladies think?" I had picked white roses because they were simple, because they didn't scream for attention, because I wanted the day to be about Mark and me, not about impressing Linda Bennett's church friends. But I didn't say any of that. I just said, "I like white roses, Mom." She let out one of those long, theatrical sighs, like I had personally disappointed her again. "Well," she said coolly, "it's your wedding." That phrase, "it's your wedding," she made it sound like a threat. Mark's family was the opposite of mine in every way. His parents drove down from Vermont the week after we got engaged. His mother cried and hugged me for a full minute without letting go. His father shook Mark's hand and said simply, "You picked a good one, son." His sister, Olivia, pulled me aside in the kitchen, dish towel slung over her shoulder, and said, "I am so glad he found you again. He was lost without you." I didn't know what to say, because I had been lost too. I just hadn't been allowed to admit it. I handled most of the wedding planning alone. My mother offered to help, then criticized every choice. The venue was too modern. The menu was too simple. The invitations were too plain. I kept the seating chart on my desk and revised it 20 times. Every version, I moved my parents' table farther from the head table. Final version, table 8 near the exit. I told myself it was just wedding stress. Normal mother-daughter friction. I was wrong. Early March, my best friend Megan cornered me in the hospital break room. Megan is a pediatric nurse, like me, has been since nursing school. She knows everything, or almost everything. She set her coffee down beside mine and said, "Your mom has been asking weird questions about you." I felt my stomach drop before she finished the sentence. "What kind of questions?" "How long you and Mark have been together. Whether you've dated much since nursing school. Whether Mark really knows your full history." I stared down at my lukewarm tea. "She doesn't know about Emma," I whispered. "She can't." Megan's expression said otherwise. Maybe you should tell her before she finds out another way. There is nothing to find, I said, and I really believed it. Closed adoption means closed. No one knows where Emma is, not even me. 2 days later, my phone rang. My mother's name on the screen. "We need to talk about the wedding," she said, her voice wrapped in that sugar-coated edge I knew too well. "And about Mark." "What about him?" "We barely know him, sweetheart. Why don't you both come to dinner? Saturday at 6. I'm making pot roast." It wasn't a request. It was a command dressed in pleasantries. I almost said no. But refusing would have triggered weeks of guilt trips and passive-aggressive comments, so I said yes. Mark was out grocery shopping when she called. When he got back, I told him. His face didn't change. He just put his hand on my shoulder and said, very steadily, "We'll go together." Something in me settled when he said that, and something else twisted. Because I had the strangest feeling I was walking toward a trap I could see, but couldn't avoid. Mark said we would face it together. He had no idea what my parents were about to do. But to be fair, neither did they. A quick word about Grace Community Church, because it matters later. Grace isn't what you'd picture when you hear New England church family drama. It isn't fire and brimstone. It's Episcopal, progressive liturgy, rainbow flags out front, refugee sponsorship programs, the kind of place that values compassion over judgment and questions over certainty. My parents are relics there. Old guard members from 40 years ago when the church leaned more conservative. They stayed not out of belief but out of inertia. Most of the congregation now is young families, social workers, teachers, people who choose grace over shame. That distinction will matter, because when my parents tried to weaponize the church against me, they had forgotten this wasn't their church anymore. But to understand what happened at that dinner, you need to understand what they were trying so desperately to protect. The thing they had been hiding for 8 years. Fall 2013. I was 16, a junior at St. Margaret's. Mark was 18, a senior. We met in the library. He was sketching building designs for his architecture portfolio. I was supposed to be studying calculus. I asked him what he was drawing. He turned the sketchbook toward me, a house with a wraparound porch, big windows, a row of trees. "Future project," he said. "College assignment." "No, someday project, for when I have a family." He gave me that exact sketch on my 17th birthday. I still have it, folded along the same creases from when I used to carry it everywhere in my backpack. We dated for 2 years. He went to MIT for architecture. I planned to start pre-med at Boston College. My mother tolerated the relationship barely. "He's too old for you, Sarah," she said constantly. 2 years wasn't really much. But to her, it was proof I made bad decisions. We were careful, or we thought we were. December 2016. I was 18, in my freshman year at BC. I missed my period. I took the test alone in my dorm bathroom. 2 lines. I sat on the cold tile and stared at it for 20 minutes. I should have told Mark first. I should have. But I was scared and 18 and stupid, and I genuinely believed my mother would help me figure it out. So I drove home that weekend and I told her. I was crying. "Mom, I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do." She didn't hug me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just said very quietly, "You're going to fix this." I knew exactly what she meant. "I'm not getting an abortion." Her face went cold in a way I had never seen before. "Then we'll handle it another way." That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment they took control. January 2017. My parents discovered I was already 2 months along. They pulled me out of Boston College, told the school I was taking a medical leave for health issues. They moved me back into the family house in Wellesley. I spent the next 8 months locked in my own childhood bedroom. Officially homeschooled. Actually just sitting on my old bed, feeling her move inside me, trying to imagine an exit that didn't exist. They cut Mark off completely. Used my own email account to send him a goodbye message. "I think we should break up. This isn't working." Signed with my name. He called my phone. My mother answered. She told him I didn't want to speak to him, that I needed space. He tried for 2 weeks, then he stopped. I wanted to run every single day. I planned it. I traced routes in my head. But I was 18, pregnant with no money, no car of my own, and nowhere to go. My father made it brutally clear. "If you contact him, we cut you off. No college, no phone, no car, you will have nothing." So I stayed, and I let them plan my daughter's disappearance. August 13th, 2017. 3:42 in the morning. Newton Wellesley Hospital. Labor lasted 16 hours. My mother and father were both there. So was the adoption social worker, a woman in a gray suit holding a clipboard, with one of those sympathetic smiles that doesn't reach the eyes. I gave birth to a baby girl, 6 pounds 8 ounces, dark hair, perfect. I asked to hold her. My mother said, "It's better if you don't, a clean break." The social worker nodded. "It's easier this way." But there was a young nurse there. She couldn't have been more than 25. She looked at me, then at the baby, then at me again. And quietly, while everyone else was looking at paperwork, she said, "I can give you a couple of minutes." She placed my daughter on my chest. 90 seconds. That was all I got. I tried to memorize everything. The weight of her warmth, the faint, perfect curl of her ear. She had a tiny birthmark on her left shoulder, shaped almost exactly like a crescent moon. I whispered, "I'm so sorry," over and over into the top of her head. Then my mother said, "That's enough." The nurse took her away. I was sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. I asked, "What's her name? Please just tell me her name." The social worker said, "The adoptive family will name her." They offered me something to help me sleep. A sedative. I was so broken I just nodded. When I woke up 6 hours later, she was already gone. Already in someone else's arms. Already in someone else's home, with someone else's name. And I had not even been allowed to say goodbye. August 14th, 2017. I signed the relinquishment papers. Closed adoption. No contact. No information. No updates, ever. My mother stood over me while I signed. "You'll thank us when you're older," she said. I went home and locked myself in my bedroom for 3 weeks. Depression hit like a freight train. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except those 90 seconds. My parents acted like none of it had ever happened. My mother converted the nursery we'd quietly set up into a guest room within a single week. "No point dwelling," she said. I started therapy in October 2017. My therapist was kind, patient. She told me, "You experienced a traumatic loss. Grief doesn't have a timeline." I told her, "But I chose this, didn't I?" She looked at me for a long, long moment. Then she said, "Did you?" Every August 13th for the next 8 years, I called in sick to work. Stayed in bed. Counted the hours since I'd last held her, which was always still 90 seconds. My parents never asked why I was sick on August 13th every single year. They knew exactly why. And on year 8, the day I was certain would gut me again like all the others, Mark walked back into my life. I switched majors in 2018. Simmons University, nursing. I couldn't save my own daughter, maybe I could save someone else's. I graduated in May 2021 and started at Children's Hospital Boston a month later. Pediatrics. Every baby I held was a reminder. My therapist said it was either self-punishment or self-healing, possibly both. I kept the bare minimum contact with my parents. Holidays only, surface conversation. We never talked about what happened, but I thought about her every single day. I built a life that looked normal from the outside. A job, an apartment in Cambridge, friends, therapy. I dated a few times, nothing serious. But every August 13th I disappeared. The ritual was always the same. I would drive to the Newton Wellesley Hospital parking lot. Park in the same spot my parents had parked that night. And I would sit there. I would count the years. First birthday, second, fifth. And I would whisper into the empty car, "What does she look like? Does she know she's adopted? Does she ever think about me?" August 13th, 2022. I sat in that parking lot and said, "You're 5 today. Do you like kindergarten? Do you have my eyes?" No one ever answered. Megan asked me once, gently, why I never tried to find her. "Closed adoption," I said. "She doesn't want to be found." I was wrong about that too. In my apartment, hidden at the back of my closet, was a small box. Inside that box were 8 birthday cards, one for each year. I would write them every August 13th, seal the envelope and place them inside. I never sent them. There was no address to send them to, but I wrote them anyway. While I was grieving, Mark was living his own private hell. I didn't know any of this at the time. He told me later. He finished MIT in 2020. Started an architecture firm with a college friend, Sullivan and Hayes Architecture. Took on projects all over Boston. Dated a few women. Nothing stuck. He told me much later, "Every relationship I tried felt like replacing you. I couldn't do it." In his sketchbooks from 2018 onward, page after page, he kept drawing the same kind of house. And every single one of them had the same detail, a nursery facing east, labeled for morning light. He didn't even know why he kept drawing it. In 2022, his firm landed a contract to design an expansion at Children's Hospital Boston. A new pediatric wing. He'd be on site for measurements. Meetings with hospital administration. Pure coincidence. Pure, ridiculous coincidence. March 15th, 2023. I was doing rounds on the fourth floor. An administrator walked in with an architect to measure the space for the expansion. The architect turned around. 8 years. He looked older, sharper around the jaw, but it was him. We made eye contact. Time stopped breathing. The administrator said, "Sarah Bennett, this is Mark Sullivan from Sullivan and Hayes Architecture." "Mark, this is Sarah, one of our pediatric nurses." Mark said very quietly, "Actually, we know each other." I couldn't speak. He asked, "Coffee, please." An hour later, we were sitting in the hospital cafeteria. 2 coffees getting cold on the table between us. We talked for 3 hours. He said, "I never stopped thinking about you, and I never understood why you left." I told him the truth, most of it. I told him my parents had forced us apart, that I had been pregnant when they separated us, that I had a daughter, born August 2017, given up for closed adoption. What I didn't tell him, what I genuinely believed, was that the baby was his. The timeline was tight. We had broken up in January. I thought maybe I had gotten pregnant right after the breakup with someone else, that I had been too broken to remember clearly. Trauma does that. Trauma rewrites timelines. Trauma protects you from the truth until you can survive it. I was wrong, but I wouldn't know I was wrong for 2 more years. April through December 2023, we started dating again. Slowly, carefully, both of us wounded in different ways. He asked about my daughter often. "Do you know where she is?" "Closed adoption. I have no information." "Would you want to find her?" "Every single day, but I don't have the right." We fell in love again, and deeper this time, because we knew exactly what losing each other felt like. In November 2023, Mark started coming with me to therapy, couples counseling. Our therapist specialized in adoption trauma. Mark listened, asked careful questions, took notes on his phone. I thought he was just trying to understand me. I didn't realize he was building a plan. December 20th, 2024. The proposal, the rooftop, the sapphire ring. That night, after I said yes, I told him something I should have told him a year earlier. "There's something else," I said, "about the pregnancy, the timing." He waited. I got pregnant right around when we broke up. December 2016. I've always assumed it was someone after you. A rebound. I was so messed up I don't even remember clearly. I should have told you before you proposed. Mark went very quiet for a long time. Then, gently, he asked, "Is there any chance she's mine?" I let myself think about it, for the first time in 8 years. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe the timeline overlaps." His face changed then. Not anger, determination. "If she's mine," he said, "if our daughter is out there, I need to know. We can't, closed adoption. There are ways." I told him to let it go. That we'd never find her. That hoping was worse than not knowing. 3 weeks later, he ordered a 23andMe kit. January 2025. Mark did the DNA test. He told me it was for ancestry. I want to know if I'm actually Scottish like my dad claims. I didn't think much of it. The results came back in February. Standard European breakdown. Norwegian, Irish, some German, no close family matches. Mark stared at the screen for a long time. Then he said, "Nothing." "I told you," I said. "She probably isn't even in the system." He nodded, but I caught the disappointment. What I didn't know, what neither of us knew, was that DNA databases update constantly. Every single time a new person joins, they get matched against everyone already in the system. And 6 months later, everything changed. August 2025. A couple in Brooklyn, Rachel and David Walker, sat in their kitchen having a conversation about their 8-year-old daughter. Rachel is a pediatrician. David is a high school history teacher. They had adopted their daughter as a newborn, and had always been completely open with her about it. At her last checkup, the doctor had asked about family cardiac history. Rachel had answered, "Unknown, she's adopted." The doctor nodded gently and said, "You might want to consider a genetic test, just for medical records." That evening, Rachel mentioned it to David. David said, "What about one of those mail-in kits? Worst case, we learn ancestry. Best case, we get medical data." They ordered the kit in late August. Their daughter, Emma, thought it was hilarious. She spit into the tube, mailed it off, and forgot about it. September 3rd, 2025. The results came back. The system flagged a match instantly. Close family match. Mark Sullivan, possible father. Rachel and David stared at the screen. The name meant nothing to them. But the age, 31. The location, Massachusetts. The timeline, it all fit. They realized this was very likely Emma's biological father. At that exact same moment, on the other side of Boston, Mark's phone buzzed. New email from 23andMe. You have a new close family match. He opened the app. Match level close family. Possible daughter. Name Emma W. Parent managed account. Age 8. Location Massachusetts. Mark told me later. I stared at that notification for an hour. Emma, born August 2017. Massachusetts. It had to be her, but he didn't tell me right away. He needed to be absolutely certain, because giving me hope and being wrong would have shattered me beyond repair. So he did what Mark does. He made a plan. September 4th, 2025. He hired a private investigator, a former Boston police detective who specialized in adoption reunions. Discreet, professional, knew exactly where the legal lines were and never crossed them. Mark gave him the information from 23andMe. Emma W., age 8. Massachusetts. The PI worked fast. Property records in Brooklyn turned up Rachel Walker, 43, pediatrician, and David Walker, 45, high school teacher, one dependent child. Female, age 8. School enrollment records in Massachusetts are public information. He cross-referenced and found her at Brookline Elementary, 3rd grade. The school's website had class photos posted from the previous year. 2nd grade, front row, 3rd from the left, purple shirt, dark curls, a gap-toothed smile. The PI sent the report. 23 pages. The photo was on page 1. Mark told me later. The photo showed a little girl with dark curls and my smile and your eyes. And I knew, beyond any doubt, she was ours. The only question left was, what now? September 21st, 2025. Mark sat me down in his apartment, serious face, gentle voice. I found her, he said. I thought he was joking. Found who? He turned his phone toward me. The 23andMe match, the PI report, the photo. I collapsed. I don't remember the next hour clearly. I know I cried. I know Mark held me. I know I kept saying, how is this possible? He explained everything. The DNA test, the match, the investigation. And then he said the part I wasn't prepared for. Sarah, the match says I'm her father, not someone else, me. That broke me open all over again. Because it meant I hadn't lost 8 years just with my daughter. I had lost 8 years with the father of my daughter. The man I loved. The man who would have fought for us if my parents had given him the chance. October 2025. Mark hired a family law attorney, Karen Mitchell, a specialist in adoption cases. We weren't trying to take Emma back. That isn't how it works. We were trying to establish contact, to see if the adoptive family would even be open to communication. Massachusetts law allows birth-parent contact if the adoptive parents consent. If they refuse, you have no legal recourse. None. Karen sent a formal letter to Rachel and David Walker. I represent Sarah Bennett and Mark Sullivan, the biological parents of Emma Elizabeth Walker, date of birth August 13, 2017. My clients recently became aware of their genetic relationship to Emma through DNA testing. They are seeking to establish contact with Emma if the family is open to such communication. This is not a legal challenge to the adoption. This is a request for voluntary reconnection. We waited 3 weeks. Nothing. I started preparing myself to accept that closed had really meant closed. Then Rachel Walker called the attorney back. November 2025. Karen put the call on speakerphone. Mark and I sat in her office, holding hands, barely breathing. Rachel's voice was warm, kind. I got your letter, she said. I want you to know David and I have always wanted Emma to know her birth parents. We tried to maintain contact after the adoption, but we were told the birth mother wanted no contact, a clean break. My blood went cold. Karen leaned forward. Who told you that? The adoption agency. They said they had reached out on our behalf, and that Sarah had requested no further communication. I had never said that. My parents had said that. Rachel kept talking. Emma asks about her birth mother every single year on her birthday. We've always told her we would help her find you when she was ready. We had no idea you were looking for her too. Mark and I were both crying. Rachel said, we aren't threatened by you. Emma is lucky to have so many people who love her. We would be honored to arrange a meeting. We set it up for February, supervised by a family therapist. 1 hour, the Walker family home in Brooklyn. Emma was told ahead of time, your birth parents want to meet you. She said yes immediately. December 2025. The Walker family began emailing us through the attorney. Photos of Emma, stories about her. She loved art. She played violin. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She was in 3rd grade. Her favorite color was purple. Rachel sent a scan drawing Emma had done the year before. A family portrait. 2 adults labeled Mom Rachel and Dad David. A little girl in the middle labeled me. And in the background, two faint, shadowy figures, labeled with question marks. Rachel wrote, Emma drew this last year. She imagined you with long brown hair and kind eyes. She was remarkably close. I stared at that drawing for an hour. She had been thinking about me all those years. I had spent 8 years believing I had no right to grieve her, and she had been grieving me. At 8 years old, we circled February 14th on the calendar. Valentine's Day. It felt symbolic in a way I couldn't put into words. I asked Mark, what if she hates me? What if she blames me for giving her up? He said, then we'll show her it wasn't your choice. We'll show her everything. I didn't know he meant that quite literally. February 14th, 2026, 2 in the afternoon. The Walker house was a Victorian in Brooklyn, painted blue flower boxes in the windows, an actual welcome mat. Emma's artwork was taped all over the refrigerator. Rachel and David greeted us at the door. They looked exactly like their photos. Kind faces, warm handshakes. The family therapist, Dr. Harrison, was already there. She walked through the ground rules. Let Emma set the pace. If she wants to hug, that's wonderful. If she doesn't, that's okay too. This is her story as much as yours. Then Emma walked in. She was small, 8 years old, dark curls, a purple dress. She looked at me, I looked at her. I forgot how to breathe. Are you Sarah? She asked, not Mom. Just Sarah. I nodded. My voice was stuck somewhere behind my ribs. She said, I've been waiting to meet you. She was holding a photo album handmade, construction paper, glitter, stick-on letters across the front that read Emma's life. I made this. She said, it's pictures of me growing up, so you can see what you missed. Every page was a punch directly to my chest. Emma at 6 months. First birthday. First day of kindergarten. Violin recital. Art show. She narrated each photo. Matter of fact, not trying to hurt me, just showing me the life I hadn't been there for. When she finished the album, she looked up at me and asked, very quietly, did you want to keep me? The question broke me open. Yes, I said. I wanted to keep you more than anything in the world. But I was 18. And my parents, your biological grandparents, said I couldn't. They said you would have a better life with another family, so I listened. And I have regretted it every single day since. She processed that. Then she asked, then why didn't you come find me? Mark spoke gently. Because we didn't know how, until now. She looked at both of us, considered us, then said, so you're like my original parents. Yes, I said. Cool, she said. Can I show you my room? Her bedroom was painted sky blue with stars on the ceiling. A violin in the corner. Drawings everywhere. One drawing on the wall caught my eye. The family portrait, the shadow figures. Emma saw me looking at it. I drew that last year, she said. I didn't know what you looked like, so I just made shadows. But now I can finish it. She pulled out markers and started adding features. She drew me with long brown hair and a smile. She drew Mark tall, with glasses he doesn't actually wear. She labeled us Sarah and Mark, not Mom and Dad, just our names. And that was okay, because we hadn't earned those titles yet. After Emma went to practice violin in the next room, Rachel and David sat down across from us. Rachel said, we are not threatened by you. Emma is lucky to have 4 parents who love her. David said, we've always believed adoption doesn't mean someone didn't want you. It means more people love you. We agreed to a plan together. Weekly visits. Gradual integration. Build the relationship slowly. Before we left, Emma made us pinky promise to come back the following week. Driving home, I felt lighter than I had felt in 8 years. We had found her, she was healthy, she was loved, we were building something real. And then I remembered, my parents still had no idea. And the wedding was 6 weeks away. We visited Emma 3 more times before everything fell apart. February 21st, February 28th, March 7th. Each visit she opened up a little more, showed us school projects, played violin for us, asked questions about family medical history. Do I get my curly hair from you? She asked me one afternoon. Yes, I said, and your dad's smile. By the 3rd visit, she hugged me goodbye. Quick, almost shy, but real. I cried in the car after. On March 7th, Emma asked, Rachel said you're getting married soon. Can I come? Mark had the wedding invitation in his jacket pocket. He had already been planning to ask the Walker family if they'd bring her. That night, we discussed whether to tell my parents. Do we tell them before the wedding? I asked. Or do we just let them find out? Mark said, we should protect Emma from their reaction. Maybe we wait until after. I agreed. That was a mistake. February 28th, 2026. Friday afternoon, around 3 o'clock, my mother was driving through Brooklyn to visit a friend. She stopped at a red light, and she saw him, Mark, walking down the sidewalk, holding a little girl's hand. My mother's heart stopped, The girl looked exactly like me at 8 years old. Same dark curls, same walk. Linda Bennett followed them. Watched Mark drop the girl off at a house on Sherman Street. She wrote down the address. She spent the next 24 hours doing research. Property records, social media, adoption registries. By Saturday morning, she knew everything. March 1st, 2026. 9 in the morning, my apartment. Mark was out picking up groceries. Someone knocked on my door. Loud, insistent. I opened it. My parents pushed past me into the apartment. My mother said, "We need to talk about the child." "What child? Don't lie to us, Sarah. We saw Mark with her." My father said, "You found her after we explicitly told you the adoption was final." I said, "You told me a lot of things that weren't true." My mother's face went red. "We gave you a chance to move on with your life. And this is how you repay us, by dragging up the past right before your wedding." I was gripping my coffee mug so hard it cracked. I didn't notice until later. I said, "Get out." They didn't move. My mother said, "If you don't end this immediately, we will tell Mark the truth about you. He already knows." She actually laughed. "Does he know you have no idea who the father is?" The lie came so easily for her. After years of practice, I said, "Mark is the father. 23andMe proved it." Her face went white. My father said, "Even if that's true, and I doubt it, that child is gone. Legally adopted. You have no claim." I said, "We're not trying to take her. We're trying to be part of her life. Something you prevented for 8 years." My mother's voice shook. "If you pursue this, you will destroy your relationship with us." I said, "Good." They left, but I knew it wasn't over. March 1st through March 13th. 2 weeks of hell. My parents tried everything. Threats: "We'll tell the church you're harassing the adoptive family." Guilt: "After everything we've done for you." Bribery: "We'll pay for a European honeymoon if you stop this nonsense." Emotional manipulation: "You'll confuse that poor child." Nothing worked. I blocked their numbers on March 13th. That's when they decided to go nuclear. They would tell Mark themselves. Assume he didn't know, he would leave me. Wedding cancelled. Problem solved. March 12th, the last call before I blocked them. My mother said, "If you won't listen to reason, then Mark deserves to know the truth about who he's marrying." I said, "He knows everything. Unlike you, we believe in honesty." March 8th. A formal dinner invitation arrived in the mail. It had been mailed 3 weeks earlier, before any of this blew up. Linda and Robert had planned this intervention dinner long before they even knew about the Emmer reunion. Now it was their stage. I knew it was a trap, but refusing would create a bigger one. Mark said, "Let them try. I have everything documented." I asked, "What if they have some proof I don't know about? Some lie I can't disprove?" He opened a folder on his phone labeled Emma. Inside, 23andMe results, emails with the Walker family, therapist notes, photos with Emma, legal timeline, everything. "Then we'll disprove it together," he said. March 14th arrived. 14 days before the wedding. We drove to my parents' house in Wellesley. Mark brought his phone. I brought my engagement ring, because I wasn't entirely sure I'd still be wearing it by the end of the night. March 14th, 2026. 5:55 p.m. The Bennett house was a large colonial with an immaculate lawn. Church directories stacked on the side table in the foyer. My mother greeted us at the door, too sweet, all smiles. "Mark, you look so handsome. Sarah, so lucky." Translation: "You could do better." The dining room was set formally. Good china. The pot roast steaming in the center exactly as promised. 4 place settings. I asked, "Who else is coming?" My mother said, "Just family." The 4th chair stayed empty all night. I thought it was decorative, symbolic of something. It wasn't. We sat down. My father said grace. Long, pointed, heavy on words like honesty and truth in marriage. Then my mother served the pot roast. And as I lifted my fork to take the first bite, my father looked at Mark and said, "There's something you need to know about Sarah before you marry her." He paused. "Sarah had a baby 8 years ago. She gave it up for adoption and never told you." Mark set down his fork, very calmly. "I know." My mother blinked, thrown, "You know." "Yes, Sarah told me over a year ago." My father recovered fast. His voice got louder, sharper. "Did she tell you she has no idea who the father is? That she was running around with multiple men after the 2 of you broke up, and the pregnancy could have been anyone's?" I started to stand. "That's not." My mother cut me off, sharp, cold. "Sit down, Sarah, the adults are talking." I sat, I went silent. My hands were clenched under the table. Mark's hand covered mine. My father continued. "She tried to trap some other man with that bastard baby. When he refused to marry her, she gave it away like garbage." Mark set down his fork. He looked my father directly in the eye and said, very calmly, Actually, I know exactly who the father is, and your daughter isn't a liar. You are. The room went silent. My father said, "What are you talking about?" Mark said, "I'm the father. 23andMe confirmed it 6 months ago." My mother's face went chalk white. My father said, "That's impossible." The timeline. Mark interrupted. August 2017. Sarah and I were together in December 2016. You separated us in January 2017 when she was already 2 months pregnant. You forced a closed adoption to hide your shame. Should I keep going? My mother's voice shook. You have no right to. No right to what? Mark said. Know my own daughter. Interesting perspective for grandparents. My father stood up. Even if you are the father, which I doubt, that child is gone, legally adopted, you have no claim. Mark said, actually, we've been in contact with her for 6 weeks. My mother's voice came out strangled. You've what? Mark picked up his phone, set it on the table, screen up. Her name is Emma, he said. Emma Elizabeth Walker. She lives in Brooklyn with Rachel and David Walker, wonderful people, who actually love her, and she knows we are her biological parents. He swiped, showed a photo from March 7th. Emma, me, Mark, all smiling. Emma holding a sign that said "See you at the rehearsal dinner." My mother leaned in. Her voice dripped venom. Don't let this trap you too. She abandoned her own daughter like trash. She's rotten to the core. Mark's voice stayed calm, glacier cold. She didn't abandon anyone. You stole her daughter, and you're about to lose your own. My mother stood up, shaking with rage. If you continue this circus, we will not attend your wedding. We will tell everyone at the church what kind of woman she really is. We will make sure everyone knows what you've done. Mark stood too. He pulled up the folder on his phone. Let me show you what we have, he said. 23andMe results proving paternity. Emails from the Walker family, who, by the way, tried to contact Sarah for years, but you blocked them. Therapist notes from Sarah's trauma treatment. Hospital records showing she tried to refuse the adoption. Legal timeline showing you rushed the process. And testimony from Rachel Walker about letters you intercepted. My father's voice was tight. You've been building a case against us. No, Mark said. We've been protecting Emma from you. There's a difference. My mother said, if that child shows up at your wedding, we will stand up and object during the ceremony. I stood up then, the engagement ring still on my finger. I looked at my mother and said, then you won't be invited to the ceremony. She said, you can't uninvite your own parents. I said, watch me. My mother tried one last card. Fine, have your reunion, but I'm calling the Walker family tonight. I'll tell them you're unstable, that you're harassing them. Mark interrupted. Go ahead, they already know our story, the real one, including your role in forcing the adoption. We have documentation, they have liars. My mother's voice cracked. You've been planning this, you've been. Mark said, we've been protecting our daughter, something you should have done. I looked at both of them. After tonight, you are not invited to the wedding, the rehearsal dinner, or anything else. You lost the right to be my parents the night you stole my daughter. We left. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. Then I said, they're not going to let this go quietly. Mark said, I know. That's why I invited them to the rehearsal dinner. I stared at him. You what? He explained. He had sent the formal rehearsal dinner invitation 3 weeks earlier, before any of this blew open. He had known they would find out about Emma eventually. He wanted the confrontation to happen publicly, with witnesses, so they couldn't rewrite history later. The rehearsal dinner meant 40 guests. Both families, friends, colleagues, church members, all the people who knew me as kind, honest, good. I asked, what if they make a scene? Mark said, then Emma will see exactly why we kept her away from them, and everyone else will see it too. March 14th to March 28th, 2 weeks. I kept my parents blocked, focused on the wedding, visited Emma twice more. She was excited about coming to the rehearsal dinner. Rachel had helped her pick out a white dress with a purple sash. So I matched the wedding colors, Emma said proudly. I asked Mark, what if this backfires? What if it traumatizes her? He said, she's stronger than you think. And she deserves to know the truth about why her family looks the way it does. March 28, 2026. 6 o'clock in the evening, the Fairmont Copley Plaza, private event room. We had combined the rehearsal dinner with a welcome party for out-of-town guests. 40 people total. Mark's family from Vermont, my hospital colleagues, his architecture firm partners, college friends, 5 church members, the progressive ones who actually liked me, and the Walker family, Rachel, David, and Emma, seated at table 1 near the exit, so they could leave with Emma fast if things turned ugly. My parents arrived at 6:15. Late, making an entrance. Linda wore a navy dress and pearls. Robert wore a suit. They looked exactly like the respectable, church-going couple everyone in this room thought they were. Olivia, Mark's sister, leaned in and whispered, "They actually came. You ready?" I said no, but let's do it anyway. Dinner started. The food was good. Salmon, roasted vegetables, conversations buzzed. Then the speeches began. The best man told a story about Mark in college. The maid of honor, Megan, told a story about me from nursing school. Mark's father stood up and talked about finding your way back to love, about second chances. My parents sat stone-faced through every word. Then Mark stood up. The room quieted. He said, "Most of you know that Sarah and I dated in high school. What you might not know is that we broke up for 8 years. We were separated by circumstances beyond our control. Family issues, miscommunication, bad timing." His eyes flicked, just briefly, to my parents. But 3 years ago, we found each other again. And this time, nothing was going to keep us apart. He looked at me. "Sarah is the strongest person I have ever known. She survived things that would break most people. And she's done it with grace and kindness that still amazes me." He paused. "There's someone else who wants to say hi." He gestured toward the door. The door opened. Rachel Walker walked in, holding the hand of a little girl in a white dress with a purple sash. "Emma." The room went completely silent. Emma walked toward the head table. Her eyes were locked on me. My mother's face went chalk white. My father half stood up, then sat back down. Emma reached me, smiled. "Hi," she said, "I'm Emma." Then she turned to face the room. Small voice, but clear. "I'm Sarah and Mark's daughter. Well, biological daughter. I have 2 moms and 2 dads. It's kind of cool." Someone in the back said, "You have a daughter." Megan stood up. "Yes, and it's a beautiful story. Let them tell it." Mark explained, briefly, factually. 8 years ago, Sarah and I were separated. She was pregnant with my daughter, but I didn't know. Her family arranged a closed adoption. For 8 years, we thought we'd never see Emma again. Then 23andMe brought us together. Her adoptive parents, Rachel and David, have been incredibly generous in letting us reconnect. Rachel stood up, her hand on Emma's shoulder. "Emma is lucky to have so many people who love her. We are honored to share her with Sarah and Mark." My mother stood up. Her voice shook. "This is inappropriate. This child should not be here." Olivia, Mark's sister, said, "Excuse me, who are you?" My mother said, "I'm Sarah's mother." Olivia said, "The same mother who forced an 18-year-old to give up her baby. That mother." Linda said, "We did what was best." Mark's father stood up. "Best for who? Certainly not for Sarah, and certainly not for Emma." The room was staring at my mother. No one was on her side. No one. My father tried to pull her toward the door. She shook him off. She turned to Emma and said sharply, "You don't belong here." Emma looked up at her. Small, 8 years old, white dress. She said, "Are you my grandma?" Linda said, "No, I'm." Emma said, "Sarah told me I have grandparents who didn't want me to exist. Is that you?" Dead silence. Linda couldn't answer. Emma kept going. "Sarah told me she wanted to keep me, but you wouldn't let her. Is that true?" Linda stammered, "It's not that simple." Emma said, "It sounds pretty simple." Margaret, an elderly church member, someone Linda had known for 20 years, stood up. "Linda Bennett," she said, "I have known you for 2 decades. I have never been more disappointed in anyone in my life." One by one, people stood. A colleague from the hospital. "Sarah is the most compassionate nurse I know. She deserves happiness." Mark's business partner. "This family is beautiful. Anyone who can't see that can leave." Even the church members, Linda's own people, turned on her. "Forcing your daughter to give up her baby, that is not what Jesus taught." Margaret said, "Linda, you need to leave. This is a celebration, and you are poisoning it." My mother grabbed my father's arm, pulled him toward the door, stopped, turned back. "You'll regret this, Sarah," she said. "All of you will." And walked out. The door closed behind them. The whole room exhaled at once. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone. A standing ovation, not for kicking out my parents, for Sarah's strength, for Mark's loyalty, for Emma's courage, for the Walker family's generosity. Emma looked confused. "Why are they clapping?" I said, "Because we're a family." She said, "All of us." I said, "All of us." She looked up at me, shy, hopeful. "Can I call you Mom, or is that weird because I already have a mom?" I was crying. "You can call me whatever feels right." She thought about it. "Okay, Mom Sarah and Mom Rachel, like that." I held her hand. The first time I had held her hand without a therapist supervising. 8 years late, but here. The party continued. Emma met Mark's parents, her other grandparents. They cried, hugged her, gave her a teddy bear they had been saving for 8 years. And the next day, we got married. March 29, 2026, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Old South Church.